All right, so I'm sure somebody has done this already. I don't hear about it talked about on any of the podcasts. So I'm sure this isn't I mean, it can't be completely new because there's settings for it in ESPN fantasy football leagues. So it can't be completely new. But I never hear of this idea, and I want to share it. So what is this? So this is a different scoring system. It's not standard, it's not half point, and it's not full point. Although if you're setting up a league in ESPN, you would use the standard setting, but then you would just be tweaking the scoring a little bit. So unlike standard already has it set up a certain way, so it really doesn't fit into any of them exactly. But yeah, so this is a scoring system that rewards offensive efficiency, and so it's not based on passes caught, and it's not based on just yards. It's actually, and it's not based on first downs. That's the third one I've heard about, which I don't particularly agree with that one either. But this one is actually based on the efficiency of a play. Was it a good play or was it a bad play? And honestly, if you want this to be realistic, that's what this should really be focusing on. And so one of the complaints about standard leagues is how overweighted the superstar running backs are, how overweighted running backs are. And so, in that sense, it's not viewed as being as realistic because, wide receivers provide value too. So, and you've got like in a standard league, your 30th, wide receiver is nowhere near as valuable as your 30th running back. And, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not a football guru, so I don't have strong opinions on that. But this efficiency scoring system does help to rebalance that to some degree and to give your wide receivers a little bit of a bump in how they are perceived because the high efficiency of their plays is rewarded. So I'm going to focus really on the first two here on the standard, and then this first one. Now, obviously, these numbers can be tweaked, and so let me just kind of explain what the number on the left and what the number on the right is if it's not obvious. So basically, in a standard league, you would get zero point 0.1 points per yard, or 1 point per 10 yards, right? So what's happening here is that that's being bumped up by 50% to 0.15 points per yard, and then points are subtracted based on how many plays you take to get those yards. So this is an efficiency. So you're adding a penalty because in real life, when you're playing football, if you use a down, that costs your team something, right? Using a down costs the team something. It costs them a down. And if you don't pick up any yards when you use that down, then you're hurting your team. Okay? So hopefully that all makes sense. So yeah, so minus 0.25 points for using a down. So then, so this kind of shows like, well, this is actually just looking at some of the top 10, 20, 40 numbers. So, so let's go back to ESPN, just kind of a standard league. So that would really have zero point 0.1 in this corner, and then it would have 0 on the penalty for using a down. Okay, so it takes, so in standard leagues, if you take 10 plays to gain 10 yards, you get the same amount of points as if you gain those 10 yards in one play. It's worth 1 point, which is completely ridiculous, right? If you went out there and said, "Hey, coach, I got 10 yards," and he said, "But it took you 10 plays to do it," you think your coach is gonna be happy with you if you take 10 plays to gain 10 yards? No. Is he gonna view that the same as if you went for a 10-yard run? No, because a 10-yard run is way better than gaining 10 yards in 10 plays. if you gain 10 yards in 10 plays, you're losing the game, right? So there has to be a penalty for using a down if you're gonna make a scoring system that makes sense, okay? So let's look at how this impacts the distribution of points. So I put in these two systems, and I took a look at the breakdown for the top 10 players in scoring as far as flex players. So running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. So the top 10, and this is based on last year's numbers. So the top 10 players last year in a standard league, 9 of them were running backs, 1 was a wide receiver, and 0 were tight ends. If you broaden it to the top 20 players, you start to see a few more of the wide receivers popping in, right? 14 running backs, 6 wide receivers, and no tight ends. Okay, if you say the top 40 flex players, right? Then you get a lot more even, right? 20 of them are running backs, 18 are wide receivers, 1 tight end. Okay. Now look at the efficiency scoring system here that has a higher reward for yards gained, but counteracted with a penalty for downs used. You see that wide receivers are get a little bit of a gain here in this scoring system. So that moves an extra wide receiver. There's 2 wide receivers in the top 10. But then you can see by the time you get to the top 20, it completely evens out. So of the top 20 players, half are wide receivers and half are running backs. And then once you get past 20, there's actually more wide receivers in the top 40 than there are running backs. So you really have a lot of kind of medium high value wide receivers, which is more realistic to real football, right? I mean, you have 1 running back per team. You might have 2 good wide receivers on the team, right? You know, when you think about running backs in the NFL, there's a few big names, but you know, then there's a lot of committees and, you know, kind of middle of the road guys. So this helps to get those, you know, top wide receivers, to get them the respect that they deserve based on their efficiency, right? And this helps to counterbalance that overweightedness of running backs in a standard league. So that's all like theoretical, right? We haven't done any numbers. So let's put some numbers into this calculator to have a look at what this means, like in real scenarios, right? So for instance, okay, so here we have on the side, we have the efficiency system at the top. Then we have standard league, half point league, full point league. And so this is the combination of plays and yards that we're using to do the calculation of how it would be scored, okay? So if we do 1 catch for 0 yards, so we throw the ball to the wide receiver, he catches it on the sideline and immediately gets tackled, right? The guy was on bump and run coverage. He knew the ball was being thrown there. So as soon as it got there, boom, he tackled the guy on the ground. 0 yards gained, okay? In my efficiency system, that play results in a negative 0.25 points. You lose points. And the reason you lose points is because you consumed a down. Your team was, let's say your team was on 3rd down, and now they're on 4th down. You've hurt your team. They're going to have to kick the ball because you caught the ball at the line of scrimmage and didn't gain any yards. So you consumed a down, which hurt your team. Okay? In standard scoring, there's no reflection of the fact that you just hurt your team. You gain 0 yards on a catch, and so it's 0 points. It doesn't reflect that you hurt your team. Okay? Half point PPR. You caught the ball, and so you're given a half a point for catching the ball, which actually, using that down, hurt your team. You just went from 3rd down to 4th down, or from 2nd down to 3rd down, or from 1st down to 2nd down, but you just lost a down. You gain nothing for your team, and you're getting points for that. That's ridiculous. Full point is even more ridiculous. You get a full point, which is the equivalent of running for 10 yards. You get a full point for catching the ball at the sideline and getting tackled. At the line of scrimmage, basically. You catch the ball at the line of scrimmage and get tackled, and you get the equivalent of a 10-yard run. That's completely insane. That's completely insane. So let's take a scenario with running, right? It's kind of a similar thing. One run, right? 0 yards. Okay, the other 3 scoring systems say it's 0 points, but the efficiency system says it hurt your team. It's negative 0.25 points. If you use up a down and you run for nothing, you just hit the line of scrimmage and fall down, and your team has to go from first down to second down, you've just hurt your team. There should be negative points for that. All right, let's say instead, let's say you take 3 plays to run for 10 yards. Okay? All right, so 3 plays for 10 yards in the efficiency system gets you 0.75 points. So it's not quite the same as if you had in standard, half point, and full point, where you would get a full point for that, right? So let's say instead you did a better job. You didn't take the whole 3 downs to get your 10 yards, but you did it in 2. So now you see that the efficiency system gives you the full reward for that. So we're basically setting it as the expected amount of downs to get 10 yards should be about 2 downs. That's a good way to do it, right? Now, if you look here, like NFL football stats, right? You see here, if I go to like a league average defense, right? And it says that the opponents get about 5 yards per down. So to say that it takes 2 downs is consistent with the data. It's reasonably consistent with the data. 5.5 yards per down is about average. That's what teams get on a per down basis. NFL team opponent yards per play. Okay? So this makes a lot of sense. 2 plays, whether it's 2 runs, or if it was a run and a completed catch for 10 yards, or even if it was 2 catches, you'll see that the efficiency system score, even if it was 1 incomplete and 1 complete catch, right? You use 2 downs, and no matter how you use 2 downs, right, you're gonna get the same points. All right, the point is, you consume 2 downs, which penalizes you twice for using those downs, but you made up for it with the yards that you received. Now you can see here the insanity. If you have 2 catches, right, in half point for 10 yards, you get 2 points, which is like a 20-yard run. And in full point, you get 3 points, which is like a 30-yard run. And all you did was gain 10 yards. So you're getting the equivalent of 30 yards of offense in points for really just gaining 10 yards. I mean, if I switch this to runs, it's all 1 point. You switch it to catches, it can go up to 3 times as much in full point PPR, and you haven't helped your team anymore at all. You haven't helped your team anymore. So full point PPR is insane. Half point PPR is eccentric. That's just another word for insane. Standard is better, but it doesn't track your efficiency either, so it doesn't penalize you for using your downs, which also doesn't make any sense. This efficiency system is a system that makes sense. If you have a wide receiver, right? Let's say let's say he has a catch rate of 50%, right? So let's say he gets 2 incomplete passes, 2 catches, but obviously 50% is low, but he's a deep ball guy. So he has 2 catches, but those 2 catches are for 60 yards because he's a deep ball guy, right? So 4 plays to get 60 yards, right? So that's pretty good. And so he's got 8 points, which is similar. It's actually the same as what the 4 point would end up with in this specific scenario. 8 points, right? Now, generally, a runner is going to take a lot more plays to get that 60 yards, right? So a runner might take 12 plays to get those 60 yards. And you can see that the 12 plays to get 60 yards is only worth 6 points, whereas the 4 plays to get them was worth 8 points. So it rewards the efficiency of the wide receiver. Generally speaking, a wide receiver is going to get those yards in less plays, which helps his team. It helps his team because he's not consuming downs. So this is the, I guess efficiency system. I don't know. Maybe we can come up with a better name for it. But this is a system that makes a lot more sense. And I don't know why someone hasn't popularized this already or made this, a common setting, because I don't know, it seems like common sense to me to do it this way. It seems to make a lot more sense than standard or half point or 4 point or even first downs, right? A guy falling over on a 3-inch run for a first down, shouldn't be rewarded like he just made a 5-yard run. I mean, even that doesn't really make sense. It's better. I think the first down is better than the other 3 options. But ultimately, I think this efficiency system is the best. I think this is the best option. So I'm hoping that people can kind of pick up a system like this and play around with it and tweak it and see if it makes sense to you. Maybe we can get more people using it.